Sabaidi Pinong. Today I'll show you how to make KHAO PIAK SEN. We're going to be making both the noodle and the broth, all homemade. It's going to be delicious. For the noodle, we'll need tapioca starch, rice flour, salt, and vegetable oil. For the broth, we use chicken thigh, filtered fish sauce, chicken bouillon powder, black pepper, ginger, garlic, lemongrass, Kaffir lime leaves, and we garnish with lime, fresh green onion, fresh cilantro, fried chili paste, fried garlic, and we'll need a rolling pin. But let's start with our broth. To an oversized pot, add 8 quarts of water. We'll be using an oversized pot because as we go, we're going to be adding all of those ingredients. Now place that on high heat and then place your chicken in the pot. You can do skin, bones, and all. If you want to remove the skin, feel free to do that before adding to the pot. So while we're waiting for that to come to a boil, let's rough chop our cilantro and let's slice our green onion into thin slices. We'll also be having or quartering our lime. So we're going to be having the lime on the side as a garnish to squeeze into our individual bowls. So make those the sizes that you prefer. And then we'll set these garnishes aside. And then we'll get started on peeling our ginger. And then we're also going to have our garlic bulbs. You can leave some of the skin on the ginger and the garlic because we're going to place this on a foiled sheet. Place it on the top rack of the oven on high broil. Really keep an eye on it so it doesn't burn, but we're looking for it to be blackened. Next, let's pound down our lemongrass stalk and tie that into a knot so that it stays neat when we place it into our broth to boil. Once our chicken is at a full boil, we can skim out some of that fat and some of the impurities. Then we're going to be adding all of these delicious sauces, seasonings, and blackened ingredients like lemongrass, Kaffir lime leaves, ginger, our garlic, and give that a nice stir. And then next up is the seasoning, our fish sauce, salt, pepper, chicken bouillon powder. Add a lid slightly ajar and allow to boil for 30 full minutes. Next, let's begin our noodles. Add a pot with 4 cups water to the burner. We're going to bring that to a boil with a tablespoon of oil of your choice. In a bowl, add your rice flour, tapioca starch, and your salt. Give that a stir. And then once our water is at a boil, go ahead and pour that over our dry ingredients. I begin mixing with a spoon while the water is still very hot. Then once it's cooled slightly, I use gloved hands and I begin to knead the dough. At first, it may seem like there's not enough liquid for the dough, but trust me, if you do the measurements that are in the description below the video, it will turn out perfect. If for some reason it's too moist, add tapioca starch. If it's too dry, add a little bit of water. Just remember, a little bit of water goes a long way, so do it slowly and carefully. Our dough is ready when it's smooth and has a tacky sound. Listen closely. Alright, so now what we're going to do is cut our dough in half. I find it easier to work with 1/2 at a time. Flour your rolling pin and your rolling surface with the tapioca starch and just roll it to the thickness that you prefer. I like a little thicker noodle. My husband likes them thinner. You could also use chopsticks as a guide so that you're getting an even thickness across the whole noodle. Now what we'll do is we'll flour, roll, and we'll continue to do this with the dough until it's the shape of a nicely folded towel. So do this to both halves of your dough, and then we can go ahead and get those cut. You can cut the dough into thick sizes, thin sizes, whatever you like. And then make sure that as you're going, you're sprinkling a little tapioca flour. You throw this in a bowl with some tapioca flour and you give it a good toss to keep the noodles from sticking together. Then to maintain the freshness, we'll cover with a towel until we're ready to use them. Now let's remove our fall off the bone chicken thigh from our broth and just let it sit to cool. We'll now strain our broth. I strain it into my 8-quart pot. And look at all of this that we're taking out. We don't want those impurities in our soup. So now you can see we have beautiful, dark, clear, clean broth. This is going to be so delicious. Don't forget to taste test and adjust seasonings as needed. Now let's remove all of our chicken from the bone. So you can shred it in small pieces, large pieces, whatever your preference is. We'll be adding that chicken. I add the skin too, straight to the broth, and then allow that to come back to a boil. At this point, you could add your noodles to your broth and then bring the temperature down, but I really like to cook my noodles separately because it gives me the texture that I really like. So I boil a pot of water on the stovetop. I'll add a handful of my noodle to my mesh strainer and then just dunk that right into the boiling water. And then using a chopstick, I'll separate the pieces out just to prevent sticking. When the noodles are done, they will float to the top. When all of the noodles have floated to the top, I give it about 30 seconds extra of cooking, then I transfer it to my bowl. Here I'll then add my broth with my chicken meat and my chicken skin, and then I'll begin to season. So I first start with my lime juice, then I'll add my cilantro and my green onion. I'll sprinkle some dried garlic on there. Dried shallot or deep fried shallot is also super good on this. Then I'll add my chili oil. Some folks like to add more fish sauce, oyster sauce. You could put hoisin in here. You could put anything that you love in this KHAO PIAK SEN. I just love how homemade noodles are just airy and light but have a slight chew to them. They almost remind me of the chicken and dumplings that I had when I was a kid on rainy days or after church. I love this soup. It's so great. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please consider being a subscriber. Your support is super awesome. And as always, I have put all of the ingredients and measurements below the video in the description box. Thank you for joining. Until next time, KHAO PIAK.